Je les ai bien connues toutes les deux, mais sur le tard. C'est-à-dire que je suis né en 1947, donc et je les ai connues en rentrant des colonies dans les années 50. Pour moi, c'était de très très vieilles dames. Elles avaient 60 ans ou 65 ans, je ne sais pas. Et elles n'ont jamais parlé de tout ça.
Vous l'avez découvert à quelle occasion, cette histoire?
Ben, je savais que ma grand-mère et sa sœur avaient été infirmières pendant la guerre, mais c'était les anciens combattants, quoi. C'était ça. Il n'y a pas eu de... Elle parlait pas. Soit elle racontait des anecdotes idiotes, ou drôles, ou comme donc une fois un général français l'avait demandé en mariage, mais elle a dit je refusais parce qu'il fumait des Gauloises. C'était tellement ordinaire, des Gauloises. Et puis après, elle s'est mise à fumer, 3 paquets de Gauloises par jour. Donc. Elle racontait que des histoires comme ça, mais pas... Elle se mettait pas en avant. Ben, il est possible, qu'elles aient évacué tout ça, et 2, qu'elles estimaient que c'était normal et que ce qu'elles avaient fait, qu'elles n'avaient pas à se vanter, je pense, je sais pas. Je sais pas pourquoi elles ont gardé le silence comme ça.
I think it's quite common with people who've been through an intense and painful experience like the war not to speak about it for 20 years or so. But the fact that she didn't speak about it later, I think there was such a blasé attitude to World War I memories by then. And also she probably felt it was undignified to boast and to say what she had done. They were doing their duty. Duty came first, so of course social barriers were lowered, but they didn't disappear. And of course they resumed after the First World War. And they were always having meals with officers, not with soldiers, although they could be quite close to their patients. And Juliet has a poilu who brings her mimosa from Nice and things like that. I think class barriers were so strong that they couldn't disappear overnight, even with the firing of the First World War.
I think it was easier for trained nurses after the war than it was for VADs, because the trained nurses went back into nursing work and they just continued to do the work they had been doing before. I say it was easy. Actually, their memoirs show that they found it difficult. They found it difficult to move from military nursing work back into civilian work. But it was even harder, I think, for the VADs because, yeah, they were mostly middle-class or sometimes upper-class ladies. They were from very genteel backgrounds, a lot of them. They would never have got their hands dirty, you know, in any sense. But then they went over to France, worked in these field hospitals, got their hands very dirty, literally, did some really very heroic work and very difficult work, giving comfort to patients and giving technical care and treatment to patients as well. And they couldn't really just, after the war, when they were demobilised, they couldn't just slip back into some other form of nursing, because actually the nursing profession in Britain made it very difficult for them. So VADs came back and the professional nurses were very, okay, so you better stop nursing now. We don't want you to do this work anymore unless you're prepared to do 2 or 3 years training. Some of the hospitals offered them a reduced training of 2 years, but they would still have had to do that training. So those who didn't necessarily have a passion to do civilian nursing work, they'd done this work because of the war, because they were patriotic and because of the emergency. I think it must have been very deflating for them. It must have been very strange for them to just come back to the life they'd had before. But I think most VADs did just slip back into whatever life they'd had before the war, before they trained as VADs. They just stepped back into that life. And it's a feature of the soldiers and the nurses in the First World War that they didn't talk a lot about what had happened to them or what they'd done. We read their stories now, 100 years later, and they're very dramatic stories to us. But they didn't often tell those stories in the years following the war. They just stepped back into a very domestic sphere